Hi, it's Jay here again and welcome to another video. So in this lesson we're going to work on implementing an FPS cap or various FPS settings. We're also going to get some things in place that will allow us to adjust the time scale. So basically the games I grew up with used to have settings for speed, so how fast the game was run. However, we only want this applied when we're actually in a match. We don't want just an overarching time scale, because this will speed up everything, including the menus, and it'll just make it seem like the game is running too fast. So we're going to do it in a way where it only affects the matches, and I'll just downsize Visual Studio and I'll hit play. So if I come to stats, as you can see here, there's the frame rate. So again, between 12 and 1300 frames a second. And I want to implement an option where we can set that at 60, which is going to be my default. Various other frame rates, and also an uncapped frame rate, so if you prefer yours uncapped, that's fine. Also, we'll implement that too. So we're going to begin in the game manager script, and we're basically just going to create a large number of variables. So just like we've done before when starting to implement a new feature. So I've created of type public static int default game speed equals 1. This is going to be for the game speed itself, not the FPS cap. That will be a different set of variables. Default game speed in the comments. Now all the others for the game speed, I will make these static, but this time I'll make them floats. Underscore game speed 1 is going to equal 1.25f into the comments defines the first game speed setting. And we'll just copy and paste that in a couple of times. So game speed 2, I'll set mine at 1.25. Now these values, obviously you will need to experiment for your project, but I'm going to stick with these values for now. And I'll just update the comments. And finally, we'll create a public static float for selected game speed. Defines the, I'll put the player selected game speed. I'll leave a line break, and then we'll create our next block of variables. So these variables are going to be for the FPS cap. So all for the game speed, and this next block all for the FPS. And we'll begin by creating a public static int. Now all of these can be of type int, that isn't a problem. Default frame rate, I'm going to set mine at 60 FPS. into the comments, defines the default frame rate. I'll put limit, and in brackets I will put the 60 FPS. Let's come below. I'll just type this out. It's going to be of type public static int again. So this is going to be for the unlocked frame rate. So a little note on this. Normally when we want something to be infinite, that's basically what we want, to set the unlocked frame rate to infinite, and then it will obviously just go up as high as it possibly can. Normally we'll use of type float. Let's quickly put this in. You don't need to put this part, this is just to show you, and you would use something like mathf.infinity. That would be the normal way to do it, but because we're using ints, we can't do that. But what we can do is say equal int dot max value. So let's get this into the comments. Sets unlock frame rate to max int value. I've just done it like this because it will try and adjust the line otherwise. So now using this int max value, some would argue, and probably quite correctly, it isn't as good as using mathf.infinity, but it's the best we can actually do with ints, and I believe it will suffice quite nicely for this game. So I've done a log frame rate of 30. I already know some of you will be saying, but ideally a fighting game you want to run at 60 FPS. I agree, but because I know some of you will be building this project for lower end devices, I've just decided to include this just for those people, so you can skip this particular line if you wish. Sets a locked frame rate. I'll put value of 30 FPS. And I'm sure you've guessed we're just going to copy this and paste it in. We're actually going to paste it in 3 times. Now we can skip 60 because we can just use the default. So we'll move to 120. $144 and $240. And of course, if you want to set other values, you just need to make another line for that values. So and we'll just tidy everything up. So we'll just save that off. So frame rate variables and game speed. Now obviously you could break these up with comments above. So you could put variables to store here and do another comment here if you need the reminder. We are doing two things at once, but because this kind of tie in, we're going to do them both at the same time. And we'll begin now by coming to the update settings. You can put these anywhere, but I'm going to put it here. First of all, we'll set the frame rate. So application dot target frame rate is going to equal the default frame rate. Close that off, and we'll put it into the comments. Sets the target frame rate to the default, because remember, we want it on default when we first start the game, and then people of course change it. We will include something in the options where you can save your settings also, and we'll have extra code to apply those if they are different, but let's just get all the basics in place. So I'm going to downsize, I'm going to hit play again. So as you can see, my frame rate is now at 60. And of course this will work if you choose another value. So I'll choose log 30, let's save that off. We'll hit play again. And now we have a 30 FPS cap. Of course I don't want that, I want the default. And yeah, I'll put these above. Like I said, they can go anywhere. We're going to put selected game speed, and this again we definitely want at the default game speed to begin with, otherwise the menus will run too fast. So again, let's get this into the comments to equal the default, and we're going to say time scale is going to equal the default game speed. And we'll also put this into the comments. So time scale to default. We can't test these lines as of yet. We will need some more code. But that's the basics in place. We'll work on the functionality in the next video, but we'll leave it here for now. So as always, I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I hope to see you next time. And until then, as always, bye for now.